Hey guys, avsongbird here. Um, don't expect me to be fully lucid right now. It's the middle of the night. It's like 3 a.m. And yeah, these are my standard operating hours. This is when I get some of my best work done is 3 a.m. I should be sleeping right now, It's on the weekend, but on the weekends I usually go without sleep with the kids here and me being used to, you just don't sleep much on the weekends. Um, I wanted to talk to you guys because I had a friend, and no, I'm not going to say their name because, I don't like to tell other people's names unless they specifically say, hey, go ahead and say my name, or would you say my name? I like to protect you guys because I know it's not an easy thing putting yourself out there online the way. But she was going around, I'll admit she's a she. She was going around and checking out some of my work, some of my writing. And she was, listening to my poetry and some of my songs and stuff. And she asked me if I ever thought about trying to get something published in a newspaper or in a magazine or like in a Hallmark card or something. And, I've been writing most of my life and living in a smaller town and everything and not really being trained with writing or going to school for it and everything. I don't have connections or know. Growing up, I didn't know anyone personally that did writing or had any part of their career that had to do with writing. It was always you go to school and then you go to college and then you get a job and then you have your family and you settle down and, that was the kind of people I've always been around. And I did admit to her that when I was 11, I got a wild hair and I sent one of my poems in to a contest and ended up getting that poem published. And riding on the heels of that, I went, yeah, I could do that a couple more times. So I sent in more poetry, and I've actually had 3 different poems published in, different points in my life. One I was 11, I think the other one was a couple of years later, and the other one was a couple of years after that. And then when I was 18, I think it was like 5 of my songs that, I thought were okay, and I set up my dad's reverberator and his equalizer with my keyboard and a microphone, and I took 5 of my songs and I did simple backgrounds for them that I wrote myself, and I, made an actual, like a demo tape, and I sent it into BMI, and never expecting to hear back going, oh, it'll get buried, they'll never hear it. And all of a sudden I get a packet of paperwork in the mail, and I get an email from them, and they asked me if I wanted to be one of their songwriters. The guy said just based off of my lyrics, which floored me. I thought, it was someone pulling something or. But the catch and the reason that didn't go anywhere, I did end up, I could say that I was a BMI songwriter technically. But in order for me to get my music out there with BMI at the time, and in order for me to get my work out there with them, I had to be able to get to one of their songwriting, like a seminar where you get up on stage with a band and you sing in public in front of people in the industry. And, it was way the hell away from where I was living at the time. And honestly, I didn't have a way to get there. So it didn't end up being anything. And, time passed and I graduated high school and I got a job and had bills to pay. And, the idea of it kind of fell by the wayside because I was, doing my thing, paying my bills, working my job. And, I buried the thought of my writing getting out there. I was still writing in private, but I'm not trying to ramble, you guys. It's hard for me to talk about putting the writing out there. And she was asking me, well, you started out doing more of the writing videos. You actually put out short stories you wrote. And did the series and you're doing the poetry and the songs, why are you kicking it back and now you're doing more of the gaming and you're doing the loot crates and everything? And those of you who, any of us that really do anything, art or creating anything, when you put yourself, so much of yourself, into a project, into something that you create, you stress so hard in wanting to get it just right and wanting to get it just perfect. And with me, I do so much research going into my stories, no matter how far-fetched and out there they are. I always try to put some amount of reality into what I'm writing and to make it as real in the situation as possible, to make the people as alive as I can. And putting everything into it that I do, I try real hard to get it as perfect as I can, and then going through all the stress of that, and then putting it out there for you guys and going through that work, and then sitting back and waiting to see what you guys will think of it. It's a scary process. And I told my husband, back when I was young, I didn't share a lot of my work with anyone. I shared some of it with my mother, but I didn't share it with anyone. When I was in junior high and high school, I shared it with a couple of my friends. I had friends ask me to write stories for them, with them in it, or I had friends that I wrote back and forth with, but there weren't many. They wrote for fun. But I had people telling me, you'll never make it. It'll never be anything. Why are you wasting your time? And you always have that devil on your shoulder. And that amount of self-doubt telling you, that you're never going to make it with it. You're never going to be anything. Shut up, bury it. Focus on your work, focus on your grades, and just worry about paying the bills and, being the responsible adult. Don't worry about it. Bury it. You'll never be up there with your, book up there or your song or anything. People won't want to hear that. And me putting the blog out there was the first time I'd ever shared my drabbles with anyone. It was the first time I've shared any of my poetry or short stories with anyone. I mean, I'll call my mother on occasion and I'll read her little bits here and there, but my hubby hasn't even read most of my stories. I mean, there's bits here and there that I'll read him just to see what he thinks, or I'll talk with him about what I'm working on, or he'll ask, But it's like I told him earlier tonight, and I kind of laughed about it because I thought about it. I don't know anymore, honestly, whether I'm more afraid of putting my writing out there and failing, or if I'm more afraid of putting it out there and succeeding. Because I don't have the education some writers have. I don't have the training. I don't have the contacts that some of them have. I don't have the experience. Housewife from nowhere, I could put my stuff out there and people more qualified than me, people more, knowledgeable than me could take the work I do and tear it to shreds and run it through the chipper, and leave me feeling like, oh shit, I shouldn't have, And it's one of those, whether I fail, whether I succeed, it's all just me. When it comes to the writing, when it comes to the editing and the music and the poetry and the stories and the characters and everything I put out for you guys, when it comes to my writing, it's just me. Whether I fail, whether I succeed, I don't have a parachute, It'll be full on free fall and wait to see what happens when we reach it, And that's a scary thing for me. And when people are telling me, oh, I really like your work, and it freaks me out now because, I look up and my Google tells me, or my YouTube tells me, that people are liking my work or sharing my work. And it's one of those, I'm starting to wonder, this may never, you have that voice in your head, this may never go anywhere, this may never be anything. And now with people starting to share my work and enjoy it and tell me it means something to them, and I've got different people following me on Twitter that are either into the movie industry or music industry and stuff, that are starting to follow me and check me out. And it's one of those, my writing may not ever go anywhere, and I'd be fine with that. I could say I spent my life writing. But what if it goes somewhere? You know? And it's one of those, like I told my husband, it's all a new experience to me, and it's all scary because if it does go somewhere, you know, I've always been simple jeans and t-shirts girl from a small town. I've always been so sheltered. And the idea, just the idea of what if, you know, being a writer, imagination from hell. I've built hundreds of stories and thousands of characters' lives around those two beautiful magical words, what if? You know, but I've never sat back and tried to apply that same principle to my life. Like I said, I told my husband, I don't know if I'm more afraid of success or failure at this point. But I've always been an open-minded person, and I'm trying to talk myself into sharing more of my original work with you guys who are interested in seeing it. And I am putting out more of the gaming and the vlogging and the unboxings than the writing right now, because it is scary, the thought of sharing my work with people when I stare into the camera every day, and you don't know what people will think. You know, I'm sorry, this has been just a rambly vlog, you guys, and I hope what I said made sense. Like I said, it's 3:20 in the morning now on the West Coast. I'm supposed to be in bed. I'm completely caffeine deprived. My coffee cup has been empty for hours. But I was just sitting thinking about it, talking back and forth with a new friend who's been checking out my work, and part of me really hopes it goes somewhere. You know, and I dare myself to daydream about, you know, what if. You know, but at the same time, it's a scary thought. Because who am I to dream such things, right? Housewife, middle of nowhere. You know, I'm making beds and working in the backyard and making scarves and spoiling my dogs. Hi, Gwen. Who don't know their dogs, you know? But I'm gonna let you guys go because she's ready for bed. Aren't you? Yeah, are you sleepy, Gwen? Gwen, short for Guinevere. You guys know my obsession with everything having to do with medieval times and Arthur and the knights, and yeah. Lifelong obsession, Middle Ages, Guinevere. But I'm gonna let you guys go, and I'm gonna get her to bed. I'm sorry about the rambly vlog, you guys. I don't even know if I'm gonna post this video. Thinking about all of this and the idea of maybe someday having one of my stories or poems in a magazine or a newspaper, or, you know, my songs, maybe one of them being on the radio or getting a poem or book published. It seems surreal to have people liking my work, you know? And I'm trying to take it one step at a time. And she doesn't care. She just wants to go to bed. But this has been avsongbird, just rambling. I hope you guys have an awesome night. I'm going. Night for me and Gwen both. Night, guys.